Hi guys, Michael here. Welcome to the aquarium room. Today with a new video. The working title for this one was Planted Tanks My Way. So basically I'll show you how I run these tanks behind me. Show you the filtration, the substrate, the light I use. And I will give you my thoughts on planted tanks. So this is going to be a total rundown of what we're doing here. It's low tech, it's low cost, but it's what we do. Hang on. The aquarium world is constantly changing. Some of the changes are caused by us adapting to new realities. As an example, the rising prices of energy has probably increased interest in nanotanks, small fish, and fish that don't require extreme high temperatures. Other changes are harder to categorize. They can be caused by new scientific discoveries, new technology, new techniques, trends, fashion, and new schools of thought that take on a character of religion. When you surf YouTube for aquarium films, you will come across all kinds of bold statements. Don't do water changes. Change 30% of your water each week. Don't ever do substrate cleaning. You can't have a planted tank without CO2. You can't have healthy plants without soil in your substrate. Rainwater is acidic and will kill your fish. Well, basically each and every one of these statements is just someone's opinion. It may be good, valid information, or clickbait, or totally bullshit. And it may or may not be relevant for you in your aquarium, but you should be the judge of that. When someone tells you that you can't have beautiful, densely planted tanks without active soil, what he or she actually means is, I can't. The reason could be that this person has chosen plants that needs to take up a lot of nutrients through the roots and don't have the time to wait for the tank to mature and produce its own rich blend of fish poo and dead organic plant matter. When you clean an old mature tank with ordinary gravel or substrate, trust me, there are plenty of nutrients down there. In anything that involves biology and organic chemistry, time and patience are important factors. Every tank is unique, and we, aquarists, are all different. What works for one guy isn't per definition a recipe for success for everyone. There are so many different schools out there, from low-tech Wallstatt style to full-on high-tech setups where sensors monitor all levels of nutrients, CO2 and light and dose accordingly in real time without human interference. Most of us are somewhere in between these two extremes. I guess you are as well, and I know I am. And I'm probably near to the low end of that scale of evolution, since I don't have the kind of money it takes to run 40-something tanks high-tech style. With all that in mind, today I'll show you my way with planted tanks. Not by any means to try to convince you to follow my way. I'm just one more guy adding a brick to the large puzzle. Basically, I just want to show you what works for me. Let's get on with it. First, let's take a moment to look at the technique and setup. When possible, I will link to the products in the text below. The rack. One of the walls in our fish room is this green wall of small to medium-sized tanks. The base for these 14 tanks is an aluminum rack system that I have customized myself to fit the individual tanks. The system of square aluminum tubes and steel reinforced plastic connectors is made by a Danish company, Porsche, but there are several other systems on the market. The tanks are a mix of old second-hand tanks I found and some new tanks. Most of the tanks in this wall are between 56 and 86 liters. That's about 15 to 23 gallons. And there are a few smaller tanks as well. The light. The aquarium lights are standard outdoor floodlights. Most of these are 10 watt, but a few are 20. I prefer a light color range of 4000 to 5000 Kelvin, which best reproduce the natural daylight. Compared to LED strips that cover the whole length of the aquarium, these lights act like a narrow focused spotlight on each tank. Since the lamps are easily adjustable, I can direct the spotlight anywhere in the tank. The result is that part of the tank has plenty of light, while other parts are dimmer, and the rays of light and shadows give interesting contrast in the underwater landscape. Furthermore, the surface agitation created by the sponge filters give a shimmer of light that's very attractive. Compared to these lamps, a full-length LED strip lamp gives a more even illumination of the tank, but removes all the shadows, contrast, sunlight, like light rays and shimmer. More effective, sure, but not as interesting, in my opinion. Another advantage of the floodlight is they are dirt cheap. The filters. The filters in all my tanks are just plain sponge filters in different sizes, all driven by one large air pump. Sponge filters are hard to beat, in my opinion. They are cheap, effective, easy to clean, and provide biological filtration as well as mechanical. And when you put a new sponge filter in a tank, just squeeze a mature filter out in the water and the new filter will be up and working in no time. Air-driven sponge filters don't create a lot of current in the tank though, and as a result only pick up the small pieces of dirt. With lots of plants in the tank, that can cause areas with no flow, where pieces of dead plant matter and other stuff can build up. To avoid that these places end up supporting algae growth, we suck up any debris during the regular water changes. Ulla and I aim to change 1/3 of water weekly, but in reality it's more like 2 times a month, sometimes only 1. The need for water changes depends on the number of plants and fish in the individual tanks and how well the tanks have matured. Houseplant filtration. An important part of the filtration is actually done by houseplants that send their roots down in most of my tanks. They act like a biological filter and use a lot of nitrates and other waste products in the water. And they provide shelter for fish under overhanging leaves and in the mess of roots underwater. They will furthermore help to clean the air in the room by using CO2. The water is mainly from our own well, but we mix with rainwater and RO water occasionally to meet the specific needs of some fish for breeding. Mostly TDS is between 100 and 250 and pH somewhere between 6.5 and 7. Nothing special. Heating. We don't have heaters in the tanks, just keep the aquarium room between 20 and 24 degrees Celsius. That is 68 to 75 Fahrenheit. It might even drop to 18 on a cold winter's night. Never caused any problems. I don't keep discos or ramps though. The substrate. The substrate is ordinary inert gravel of many different sizes or colors. Most of the pebbles are 3 to 8 millimeters. Some of this gravel has been used since we started our first aquarium 4 decades ago. Over the years, the colors have been mixed up, but that just adds to the natural look. You'll never need to replace this kind of substrate. It just needs cleaning once in a while. When I take down a tank and clean the substrate, I use temperate water, so I keep some of the beneficial bacteria alive. The substrate in itself acts as a much larger biofilter than the sponge filter. I have no active soils in the tank. As a result, I can move plants around from tank to tank, or just move plants and decorations inside the tank without leaking soil and nutrients to the water column. All the plants I use thrive just fine without active soil, and I have plenty of Vallisneria, Amazon sword plants and cryptocorynes that all are considered heavy root feeders. I add a few root taps to the sward plants now and then, but mostly they all thrive and grow on the dirt that accumulates in the coarse gravel. In fact, I vacuum the gravel on a regular basis to remove much buildup of dirt. This probably wouldn't be necessary if I used a large filter pump, creating more current and snatching up any debris, but that would be too expensive in each and every one of all the small tanks I run. Fertilizers. In addition to root taps and a few fertilized clay balls for some of the sword plants, I dose a standard all-in-one liquid fertilizer weekly. I seldom follow the instructions on the bottle, but let the plants tell me how much they need. Stem plants like Embulia and the floating frog bed are good indicator plants. They turn light green to olivish yellow when they get hungry. The CO2 system. Before showing you my CO2 system, I will point out that I had my tanks running for decades without adding any CO2. It's not a must, but your plants will benefit from it. I've used several different kinds of DIY CO2 systems over the years. Mostly the sugar yeast bottle method. 5 years ago I started a real simple solution, using small containers or jars made out of SodaStream bottles and a customized SodaStream machine. I make these small jars, add a suction cup and place the bottle bottom up in the tank. I prefer to hide it behind decorations or plants. I hate visible technique in any aquarium. Like, really hate it. Then each morning Ulla takes a round, filling each CO2 jar, and throughout the day the plants take what they need. It's low tech and I don't have complete control over the CO2 values. The levels might fluctuate, which should be a bad thing, but the plants grow like crazy, so I don't bother much. You could use any CO2 pressure container for this method. The plants. Running aquariums, low tech, low light, low cost, and basically low anything, gives a lot of pros and cons. I told you about a lot of the pros. On the downside is some plants demand more of life than I'm able to give them. When you take a look at my wall of greenery, there aren't many hot red plants in there. Some plants need a lot higher light intensity, more precise dosing of CO2 and fertilizers than I can give. As a result, they don't live long in my fish room. Most plants do fine though, so I don't feel I'm missing out on anything. It's not that I can't have red plants, they just don't get crazy red. My need for that can be compensated by using floating plants, aquarium plants above the surface, and using red in some of the house plants I keep in most of my tanks. the method. Okay guys, as you probably realized by now, if you're still hanging on, my method isn't new, fancy or funky, and it sure isn't extreme. It's not hardcore, low-tech, not high-tech, and it's not aquascaping artistic. Guess it's just the knowledge and experience I picked up from the many very skilled aquarists I've had the pleasure to meet over the years. Accumulated old school aquaristic common sense, nothing more. Okay guys, that's all for today. Remember to subscribe, ring the bell, all that stuff. See you in the next video. Bye.